So let's walk through kind of proper setup with this camera on the gimbal. One of the most important things when you're working with a gimbal and you're trying to gyro stabilize it is that you get the CG of the camera absolutely perfect. If you can visualize when this roll servo's got to work, if it's preloaded one way or another, if the camera is weighted to the right, when it has to make moves to the left, it's working really hard to do that. And then also when it's moving this way, it's got a force that makes the whole gimbal want to run away that way. And if the servo can't quite keep up or can't quite do it smoothly enough, you'll get like a stair-stepping motion, which you'll see in a lot of people's video. And usually that's from a poorly balanced or poorly set up gimbal. So let's put the 5D on here. Let's get it balanced. Let's get it set up. I'm just going to tighten up. This is going to be kind of a rough setup because it would take, it's kind of one of those things you need to just take some time, sit down one night and do when you're in a patient mood and you have some time to adjust. It takes a little bit of time to get everything perfectly set up, but once you do, unless you're swapping cameras really frequently, it's kind of it'll be set up like that well for a while. So okay, so I tightened down the 5D so it's not flopping around quite so much anymore. But what I was saying is we need to balance this whole tilt axis assembly from this point forward, this point here forward. We need to treat that all as one assembly, and that whole assembly needs to be balanced. When I pick that up right now, this thing leans over at about a 45-degree angle. That's nowhere near balanced. And if we were to try and use it like this, the flight control systems are going to have a really tough time balancing, gyro stabilizing something that's so out of balance. So what we need to do is we need to take and actually slide this whole assembly over that way. That's going to require taking the camera off or kind of getting sneaky with an Allen wrench. I'm going to just get a little bit sneaky with an Allen wrench to try and, so I don't have to dismount this whole thing. I'm just going to loosen up, see if you can see in there. Loosen that one. Loosen that one. And hopefully that's loose enough that I can just slide this whole, yeah, if I wiggle it like this, if I wiggle it just like this, I can get this whole assembly to just slide right over. So I slid it over, I don't know, an inch. So I'm going to retighten that up, retighten that one up. Let's fold it back open and let's see if we're getting closer. Okay, so you can see we're getting much closer. I'm just holding on my finger and it's balancing. You can get a feel for it if you move the roll axis and just let go, see if it stays where it is. If it wants to just stay there naturally, you're getting pretty close on balance. Same with tilt. Tilt right now is, you can move it, just wants to stay there. When you really get into balancing this perfectly for whatever your setup will be with the camera, you can actually remove the belts from each axis, and that will allow you to perfectly balance it. So just go through a similar system like I've just showed you, and we'll need to adjust, the position fore and aft of the camera on the camera plate. Depending on the camera, you might have to flip the camera plate around. If it's a very long camera like the FS100 with a 5D, you can get away with it in stock configuration and just sliding it back and forth. We'll need to adjust this whole part of the gimbal so that when we pick this thing up, it doesn't want to move. It doesn't have to go level. It just has to want to stay where it is so that it's there's no force trying to pull the roll axis one way or another. It's perfectly balanced. This gives the lowest inertia that we can possibly get with the gimbal and allows the flight control systems to do the best job they possibly can. So the last step with all this is just mounting this gimbal to the CineStar. And what that looks like is I've got a CineStar 8 camera mounting bracket right here. It's just got, you're probably familiar with these clamps at this point. We use them everywhere. You'll just slide that in, tighten that down, and then, this mounts to the vibration isolators. You actually have the ability to slide this fore and aft as well. You want, when this is attached to the CineStar, you want it to be centrally balanced load on this plate so that it's putting equal pressure on each one of these vibration isolators. And you can adjust that by making sure that the gimbal is perfectly lined up So this is the camera mounting, or the camera isolator mount plate is lined up correctly, and then sliding it fore and aft to make sure that when you pick this whole assembly up, that it CGs. If it wants to tip forward, if it wants to tip backwards, if it wants to tip this way or this way, that's bad, because it's going to be putting unequal pressure on the isolators, and we really want to have each of those isolators isolating in the same exact way. All right, so I realized in that last step my hands were in the way a lot, and the 5D was in the way a little bit, and I don't know if you could exactly see what I was adjusting. So when we were adjusting for the roll axis, what I was actually moving back is I was sliding this whole piece. So this whole piece can slide to the left and the right, and this allows you to CG this entire part of the gimbal, the whole tilt mechanism. That allows you to CG it as one piece. So you have the ability to slide the camera mounting plate side to side, and then you also have the ability to slide that whole assembly side to side. So between those two things, you will be able to get it so that the camera is perfectly CG'd for the roll axis, and then you'll also be able to get it so that when you try and pick the whole unit up in a ready to fly state from this, that is all CG'd as well. So I just wanted to point that out without the camera being in the way and without my hands in the way.